From the blood-stained sands of Bondi Beach to the halls of the Ivy League, this has been a horrifying week. 15 dead in Australia, a mystery gunman vanishing from a weapon-free campus at Brown University, and while the FBI is busting bomb plots in California, Texas is officially declaring the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization.
Where is the wide condemnation from the Muslim community?
We're witnessing a clash of civilizations, then a fierce debate over immigration, and whether we should be arming or disarming in the face of all of this.
The bad guys will always get guns, and we have this beautiful Second Amendment right here that gives people like me the ability to not only defend myself against bad guys, but also against a government that doesn't want to play by the rules that they're supposed to live by.
Joining me to break down the tactics, the theology, and the reality of self-defense is former Navy SEAL with 2 combat tours in Iraq, the host of Carl Higbie Frontline on Newsmax, and, of course, author of Profiles in Freedom, Carl Higbie is here. Keeping it real with Jillian Michaels. Hey, boss, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Let me comb my hair.
I don't know.
There we go.
I don't think you could ever look like that. Perfect. Quite dashing now. So much better. Now you're presentable. Before you were terrifying looking, but now
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just c'est magnifique. I can't help but feel a bit rocked, obviously, by the week and the irony of the fact that you just warned me about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So to recap anybody who is not up to speed, I have the facts, of course. We've got terror on the sands of Bondi Beach. Hundreds of families gathered for Hanukkah by the Sea celebration. 2 gunmen, a father and a son, opened fire on the crowd. 15 people were killed. 40 people were injured. The 50-year-old father was shot dead by police on the scene. His 24-year-old son, Naveed, remains in critical condition. And we were literally just talking about the fact that Texas issued a proclamation labeling the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, as foreign terrorist organizations. And I was asking you, like, is this Islamophobic? Is this racist? Are we being paranoid? And here we are. So what is your initial reaction to this, obviously, from the top?
I mean, my initial reaction is, I told you so. But also, where is the wide condemnation from the Muslim community? I mean, we had Zuhdi Jasser on the other day to talk about this stuff. And he's like one of the few people out there who's like, look, I'm a Muslim and I think this is bad and we need to address it. And nobody's calling it out. And everybody who does is getting labeled an Islamophobe. And it's not Islamophobic. It is, you have, the fundamental point here is there's 56 Muslim countries that we recognize, and all these refugees, they're seeking refugee status not in the other 56 Muslim countries, but in all the Western countries. They get there, and once they do, the culture changes. This is the problem. We're doing a story on the Netherlands right now, where the culture of their country in most small shops and towns is, for hundreds of years, by the way, they just have the goods out, they mark a price on it, people leave the money, and there's no store clerk there because they're out there manning the farms while this happens. Well, since they've started mass importing people, the culture is these migrants are just coming in and taking the food and not leaving any money. Like the fundamental differences.
You know, I want to show this clip. It's gone viral because I'm trying to present, obviously, the juxtaposition here of the vast majority of Muslims who are incredible people. So I'm sure you've seen this a million times. But guys, let's throw it up to make sure that we include this. This is Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a Muslim man who bravely disarmed one of the shooters.
Oh! C'est un malade. Oh non, gros! Oh! Ouais, mais il y a son pote, il va se faire tirer dessus. Il est trop con, le mec qui a l'arme.
I mean, that guy is a gangster. Like, good on him.
Right, I'm like, let's give him citizenship here. Then of course the argument is, look at all these incredible people. He's a Muslim. He's saving Jews from radicalized Muslims. And I have friends who are Muslim. You have friends who are Muslim. How do you hold this duality in your heart? What does one do here? Because you and I have talked about the numbers a little bit, and I did a bit more homework. So you were like, let's say, Jillian, that 8 to 10% of Islam, of Muslims, are radicalized. There's 2 billion Muslims.
That was according to Biden's State Department, by the way.
I got in this fight yesterday on Piers Morgan, and I actually polled Pew Research, which said 16 to 15% justify or sympathize violence. You have a totally different statistic. Can you cite that for me? But what was it?
It was Joe Biden's State Department said between 8 and 10% of current Muslims in the world today are radicalized, which means they are happy to do violence, not stand by idly, but to do violence on non-Muslims.
Okay. Then I got another one for you. So counterterrorism discourse and intelligence estimates frequently cite a broader figure of 15 to 25% that sympathize with the goals of destruction. So I, of course, bring this up on Piers yesterday, and I'm like, guys, here's the thing. Like, obviously, there are beautiful human beings who are Muslim. Like, this guy, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, is an incredible person. I was so moved. I was in tears watching this guy for the first time, but what do you do about this radicalized portion? That's a hell of a lot of people. They both shook their head and immediately called me a white nationalist, a self-proclaimed white nationalist.
Clip.
And
you handled it magnificently, by the way. You handled it beautifully. I was laughing hysterically when I saw that, because I was like, these people, they just go to it. They're just like, that's their one thing. It's like, Jillian, by like all accounts, you're not white.
I know. And I got a black kid and a brown one, but I never use the kids as shields. But then the people who do know that I have kids of color call them house slaves. So I'm like, they're not slaving very well. Like I'm the one that does all the laundry, the cooking, and the cleaning around here. But we joke, but the reality is, you can never just have an honest conversation. Like, of course, people are developing Islamophobia because they're seeing this and they're scared. So what? And by the way, neither one, not Cenk or Wajahat Ali, took responsibility like you're saying. They both just called me a white nationalist.
Mm-hmm. And there was a beautiful clip on CNN too that I thought was really insightful, not because I agreed with any of it, but they had this young woman on who was trying to defend the notion. She's like, look, I don't think we should be having people here who are for genital mutilation. And of course, you had Abby Phillips and you had all the panels. They were like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And she's like, I don't want people who don't embrace the American culture. And there was something very interesting at the end. One of the black panel member said to her at the end, and they were trying to get her to say Muslims, but she did a very good job. She was like, no, it's the culture. I don't care what their skin color is or their religion. It's a culture. There was a black member of the panel afterwards who said, well, then, like, how do you justify bringing only white South Africans here? And she didn't, she was like not prepared to have a combative thing. She was like, I just don't want to live under Sharia law. But the answer to that question is, well, what is the crime committed by immigrated white South Africans to date? And from my research, it's approximately, give or take, 0. They also don't take benefit programs. I saw them waving American flags as they were entering the country, not Somali flags or Palestinian flags or South African flags even. They were waving American flags. They come here, they don't commit crime, they get jobs, they assimilate to our culture because our culture resonates with their culture, and they perpetuate our culture when they come here. That is why it's okay for me to take in white South Africans. Additionally, they're being like, black people in South Africa are taking their lands. I thought, according to the Democrat Party, we're not supposed to take lands, right? We're always acknowledging like stolen lands and everything like that. So they're taking their land and then they're killing them, and that's why they're fleeing. So yes, that's why I'm happy to bring them here.
But I could even point out that Patrick Bet David is Iranian. and beloved by the Republican Party. Vivek Ramaswamy, first-generation American Indian, beloved by the party. The vice president's wife, Indian. Like it's obviously not a skin color thing. And then when I brought up assimilation on Piers, Cenk Uygur starts talking about, I think, Orthodox Jews wearing hats and like, would we condemn them for their clothing? And I was like, Cenk, none of this is about food and fashion. It's like, oh, assimilation, like it's just a mask for racism. I'm like, no, it's about chance of death to America.
Yeah.
If
you want to wear a yarmulke, cool by me. You want to wear a turban, also cool by me. Like, none of these things bother me. But when you force me to wear a turban, then we got a problem.
Right. I want to go back to our last interview together when you encouraged me to read the Quran. And I said, well, it's peaceful. It's the most peaceful religion. And you said, have you read it? And you said, I've read it. You should. So I started reading it. And I want to point out a few things. I'm not religious. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm agnostic. I have no idea. But I start looking at this, and it's actually very confusing. So there's two basic timelines here. One is the Meccan period, right, which is the early years where Muhammad is unbelievably peaceful. So, for example, I pulled this one quote here, Surah 109:6. For you is your religion, and for me is my religion. I'm like, well, that's beautiful. I live like that. Muhammad's a liberal. Sorry,
great.
Carl. Like, example, Surah 2:256. There is no compulsion in religion. But then as it progresses, it starts to change dramatically. Then you get into the sword verses. And you've got kill the polytheists wherever you find them, capture them and besiege them. And then Surah 9:29, fight those who don't believe in Allah until they pay the jizya, the tax, and willing submission and feel themselves subdued. So here's the thing. There is a duality here, and I don't really understand how to reconcile it. And I want to show you one more clip before you answer.
One of the largest concentrations of Jewish population in all of Australia, and many of them, hundreds if not thousands of them, were out celebrating when this father and son, the father who moved to Australia back in 1988, his son was born here. His son's been studying the Quran and Arabic for the past year. His teacher says they showed up with a stockpile of rifles. It turns out the father was a licensed gun owner here in a nation that has incredibly strict gun laws for the past 30 years, ever since the last mass shooting basically caused the country to collect most people's guns. But certain people have a license if they're members of gun clubs. Apparently, this father was a licensed member of a gun club.
So I'll get to the guns in a minute. What struck me is you got a family that moved there in 88. That's a heck of a long time to become an Australian. The son was born there. But then they're like, he starts reading the Quran and learning Arabic this past year, and now he's radicalized.
Right. It's
okay.
amazing. You also have, keep in mind that the mosques and a lot of the study programs and things like that within the Islamic community, of the Muslims in Australia, 2/3 of Australian Muslims were not born there. They immigrated there. And a lot of people like that guy who's spent his whole life in Australia, he's assimilated to a culture of people that was run by people who were not born there, who came there and brought the customs from other nations, and they taught that in a lot of these mosques. It's a staggering thing. And I believe it was the mayor, it might have been a member of parliament there, who said, like, diversity is still our greatest strength. It's like, no, it's not. And it just proved it. But like, what does it take? Does something physically have to happen to that person in order for them to understand that this is the way it is and it will continue to happen until you stop it? Or are they just never going to get it?
When it comes to holiday gifting, I want to give people things that they'll love. Beautiful, timeless pieces that they'll wear for years. And that's one of the reasons I go with Quince. Everything's premium quality at a price that actually makes sense. Quince has something for everybody, whether it's silk tops and skirts for dressing up, perfectly cut denim for everyday wear, outerwear that actually keeps you warm and looks good. Their Italian wool coats, they're standout pieces. They're beautifully tailored, incredibly soft, and they're crafted to last for seasons. Every piece is made with premium materials from ethical, trusted factories, and they're priced far below what other luxury brands charge. The craftsmanship, it shows in every detail, from the stitching to the fit and the drape. It's elevated, timeless, and made to wear on repeat. I personally am obsessed with their super soft Mongolian cashmere sweaters. For only $50, they look and feel amazing. Guys, I find gifts so good, you're going to want to keep them with Quince. Go to quince.com/Jillian for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Jillian to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Jillian. This breaks my heart though, because I am a diversity is our greatest strength person. And I think what I mean by that is when you have people of different religions and different ethnicities, and I do love the food, I do love the culture, I do love the fashion, I do love the differing perspectives. But this is where it keeps coming back down to, what do you do about the ones that are extremely radicalized? How do you vet them? If we go through, okay, so I then looked at this past month, what has occurred? And you got kind of a lot. So, all right, we have obviously Bondi Beach, which we know, but you've got the guy who shot the National Guardsman. You've got a foiled Christmas market terror plot on December 12th. So you had German special forces arrested 5 men in Bavaria who are in the stages of planning a vehicle ramming attack on a Christmas market. 56-year-old Egyptian imam, Syrian national 37, 3 Moroccan nationals, age 22, 28, and 30. Okay, well now we're at 3 incidents so far. Germany and the UK Hamas weapons network early in November. A coordinated cross-border operation led to arrests in London and Berlin regarding a stash of weapons intended for attacks on Jewish institutions in Europe. The suspects, Mohammed, 39, a British national arrested in London, identify him as the son of a senior Hamas official. Boran El-K, a Lebanese national arrested in Germany. I'm not done, Carl. Jean Shah Safi, an Afghan national arrested in Virginia for alleged material support to ISIS. Ramanullah Lakanwal, Afghan national that just shot the one that shut up the guard. This is in the last month.
Don't forget LA. They just foiled a radical pro-Palestinian group from a terrorist attack in LA. France has canceled all of their New Year's celebrations in Paris because they're worried about Islamic terrorist attacks. Like,
right.
What's it going to take?
I don't know. I think the problem is everybody looks at, or not the problem, I mean, everybody looks at Ahmed Al-Ahmed, and I would love Ahmed Al-Ahmed to be my neighbor. I would build Ahmed Al-Ahmed a guest house. So I think we don't know how to reconcile this. I think the problem is that people are empathetic and that we've been such a beautiful melting pot, but there is this radicalized faction and the left is refusing to acknowledge it and just calling everybody a racist. So we sort of get nowhere, right? And then what you end up with are mass deportations. Like, you look at this guy, Wajahat. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go.
Yeah, no, but to your point, like, this is the left, the modern left today, not like your original, like your original liberalism. Okay, this is far different from that, which is, okay, Carl, you're racist, and then it doesn't solve anything. It's just like there's no solution there. You can't just say you're racist and then move on because it doesn't help the problem.
Right. Can I put forward some of the pushback that I've received? I'm not very familiar with Christianity. My wife is Catholic. Many of my friends are religious, but as mentioned, I really don't know a ton about it. The obvious go-to when I point out some of this stuff in the Quran that's a bit alarming, and I point it out because I always kind of blindly accepted that it's the most peaceful religion. That's what they told me, and I believed it. But then
Right.
they're like, well, have you looked at the Old Testament? But my argument to that, or the Torah, is that you know how many terror attacks have been committed by Zionists? Zero. Gaza is a war, and people want to get into that. Like, no problem. But like, we can have that conversation about Gaza and the Israeli government, but
But they're
you
not
can't
strapping
conflate
bombs
the
to
two
their
issues.
chest and walking into markets.
Right.
Yeah, Christians
Right.
aren't out
Okay.
there, doing coordinated terrorist attacks for Christmas. Yes, you have crazy people like a bunch of trans people who shot up schools recently. Like you have crazy people
Right.
like pick a mass shooter. Ironically, that all happen in gun-free zones, by the way.
I know, and I want to get to that. I got a lot to ask you about there. But I want to hash out some of these things that I'm pressed with, because I think you could better answer them.
Mhm.
In particular with Christianity. When I look at Jesus versus Muhammad, and again, I'm not familiar with very much on the Old Testament and the New Testament, but like when I just look at fundamental differences that I'm being educated on, Jesus, it's like Christianity, you're saved through the blood of the martyrs. Muhammad, it's like kill, we move this
Non-believers.
religion forward through the blood of the There are some fundamental differences there that just,
Yeah.
it's like one is turn the other cheek and one is subjugate the non-believers. Like, in fact, the majority of the Quran, I ended up looking up statistics on this because I was really trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Over 50% of it is about subjugating the kafir, the non-believer.
Right.
And then like 30-40% of it is on how to be a good Muslim. So listen, being gay, I was always a little bit afraid of religion until I started to listen to conservatives, and I'm like, I'm not really afraid for my life. Like, if we have a debate about marriage, I'm happy to have it. But it feels very different to me than worrying that someone's going to go shoot my kids at a music festival. And again, neither of us are saying this is the vast majority of Muslims. It's not. It's just that you have a very radicalized faction. And because Islam is so big, that's still a heck of a lot of people. How do you answer this one? Because this one was put forward to me. I did actually fact check it, and it says it's true.
Okay.
According to the FBI, like 2018 through 2021, the number one terror threat in America are alt-right extremists, which, of course, I unilaterally would condemn, and I would put them in jail. I would label alt-right extremists a terror group. But I still, again, feel like we're conflating two issues. If I could deport those guys, I would deport them. How does one answer that?
I've actually had people like John Lott on, who is great on crime statistics and break this down to the infinite decimal number. And if you look, we did a piece on Monday night on my show about this, where we talked about, for instance, the DC crime statistics. So we now know they were cooking the books. Well, one of the things they also did there was they were arresting people named like Alberto Santo Dominguez, okay, Juan Lopez. And these are people who are not of legal status, who are illegal immigrants who came here to this country, and then on the arrest record, they were labeled white. This is happening all over the country, not just in Washington, D.C. We played placard after placard after placard of rap sheets from these people, where people from Somalia labeled white, people from Mexico or Honduras or Colombia or Venezuela or anything else, all labeled white on their thing. The additional thing is, let's talk about what they define as, white supremacy terrorists. Are you talking about the people who were involved in the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping trial? Because the FBI had a lot of those charges dismissed because they entrapped them. Because it turns out there were more FBI agents trying to make it seem like there was a kidnapping plot for Governor Gretchen Whitmer than there were actually people that were willing to go along with it. So the statistics like that. When I was at a school board meeting, they labeled me a domestic terrorist because I was pounding the podium because I didn't want my 10-year-old to wear a mask that she couldn't breathe through. So yeah, if you classify people who are white, that don't agree with Democrats, well then yeah, you can make the argument that there's a lot of white supremacy terrorism in here, but we're not actual white supremacist terrorists. We're just normal people who want the government the hell out of our hair.
I would be the first. Listen, you know, you and I got in a thing about Nick Fuentes. Like, I would be the first to just, you were obviously not supporting it, but you were saying we should look at what's going on there. I was saying, you know, I think we should kind of disavow his bad ideas openly. Nevertheless, the point is that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because Nick Fuentes is one of these guys. The guy's a jerk, okay? He's got some radical views based on nothing, but how did he get from where he was to how he is now with 40 million followers? If he's got 40 million followers, we should understand how 40 million people came to agree or at least want to hear what he has to say. That's the bigger issue here. That guy can screw right off for all I care. But we should look at why people might follow him because there's some problems in there.
You know, I watched in preparation for Piers. I guess this guy Wajahat Ali had a rant the week prior where basically he's like, white people, you know, your women are like not as good looking and your food is gross and bland and your music sucks and we're breeding. Like he literally said we're breeding as though, you know, immigrants are livestock and we're taking over like literally like a complex family system of immigrants is a biological weapon of a culture war. He goes on to talk about how your white women, your pure Rust Belt women prefer us as though women are war trophies. And I'm like, this is so gross and so disturbing and so creepy. And I can see it as that, right? I can see it as a guy who, like, for some reason really hates white people. I don't know what happened to him in his past. I invited him on. I was like, I would be happy to sit down and talk to you about what the fuck. But table that for a second. I think about my 13-year-old hearing that and then being like, F this guy. Yes to Nick Fuentes. Sick him, Nick. Like that. Yeah. I, you know, and of course I immediately sent it to, I always am trying to get ahead of these things. And I sent it to my son and then I'm like, listen, you know, this guy, you're going to see a lot like this. This guy, you know, is deeply disturbed. Like, let's look at Ahmed Al-Ahmed who just saved, because I'm constantly trying to provide this child with, you know, a full picture of the world because I'm so afraid that guys like Wajahat Ali will end up turning my son to the white nationalists who I fully condemn.
Yeah.
I got one for you. I want to go on to Brown and a little bit of this conspiracy theory where I think maybe, right, like I'm willing to call out a little crazy on the right. There's a kid, let's pull this up. Guys, can you show me that full screen of what went on at Brown? So VP of Brown's Republican Club was killed. There's 816 cameras on campus. At this point, this was yesterday. So there's far more hours after the attack now. So probably, I don't know, 2 full days at least, 48 hours probably. 0 suspects in custody. And I have been hearing people say things like, I think I heard him call out Allahu Akbar. And I'm like, oh, please don't jump to these conclusions because then it's like you're losing the high ground in this argument. Sure. But at the same, and then they're like, we don't have the footage because he's probably Muslim. I'm like, oh God, please don't do that because. Yeah. But okay, so what do we know? Let's talk about that for a second. What do we know about this? Nothing.
Literally nothing. And this is Brown University has also bragged in the past about using facial recognition on their campus for campus security too, by the way. Okay, we have, you know, over 800 cameras and the building that this was in. Also, let's not pretend that this most likely was not a targeted attack. There's, in a recent survey of Brown, less than 90 students identified as very conservative. This young woman was the vice president of the Young Republicans Club on campus. And allegedly, and it's being reported now, that her family has revealed that they know that she was the target. Okay, they apparently
Are you
allegedly been told that.
serious? Okay.
Yeah. And so someone else got caught up in this. So it's like, when you talk about right-wing violence being the problem here, it's like based on what? Because a Catholic school got shot up by somebody who was upset recently. Now we have Brown, the alleged target at this point was the VP of the Young Republicans Club on campus. Like, there is more crimes and more hate against conservatives. Like, I mean, Donald Trump got shot in the ear. Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck. Like, where's the run-of-the-mill conservative guy like me? Look, by all accounts, I'm one of the most dangerous humans in America. I own tons of guns, and yet I've never shot anybody in this country. But I'm the guy that they tell you is the biggest threat.
Channel the fresh start energy of the new year and finally launch your business. 2026 is the year you rewrite your story. You own your future and you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. Start your business with Shopify in 2026 and become who you're meant to be. My wife actually just started a Shopify account for her clothing company because Shopify gives you everything you need to sell online and in person. Millions of entrepreneurs have already made this leap, from household names to first-time business owners just getting started. Shopify gives you all the tools to easily build your dream store. You can choose from hundreds of beautiful templates that you can customize to match your brand. Setup is fast with Shopify's built-in AI tools, the right product descriptions and headlines, and to help you edit product photos. Marketing is built in as well. You can create email and social media campaigns that reach customers wherever they scroll. And as you grow, Shopify grows with you. Handle more orders and expand to new markets and do it all from the same dashboard. So in 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Jillian. Just go to shopify.com/Jillian. That's shopify.com/Jillian. And hear your first this new year with Shopify by your side. I was really hoping that was just a hideous coincidence that this young girl was the head of the Republicans Club, because I just thought, like, so what? There's a million Republicans. There's more people voted for Trump, so he can't shoot them all. But you do think that's enough. Why would the family think that? Do they have any
Apparently,
evidence?
they've been told that. So, but it's being reported. It's not confirmed, but it's being reported that they have been told that they believe their daughter was the target.
One of the things that really strikes me here, and you saw a little bit of it in the clip I showed you earlier about the fact that the guys in Bondi legally owned those guns. And yet, nobody's allowed to own guns in Australia.
Right.
And then there's a great clip of Kamala Harris talking to the PM in Australia. I got to show you this because it's just so ironic.
I know
Gun violence has terrorized and traumatized so many of our communities in this country. And let us be clear, it does not have to be this way, as our friends in Australia have demonstrated.
Okay. Carl, first of all, by the way, this is also the woman that bragged about owning a Glock.
Which is
so
now
the
illegal.
Hypocrisy thing. The hypocrisy thing is bananas. It's bananas. But outside of that, I do want to have this conversation. I feel that, if you gave me the choice, okay, nobody but like the exceptional, like the vetted cops in our military have guns. Nobody. And don't worry about the 400 million guns that are already out there in the country that you can't possibly buy back. But let's say you can. We can make them vanish. We're snapping our fingers and all the 400 million guns go away. And the 30 million guns that are out there that are illegal, that we can't even track really, those go away. And just the good guys, like the cops in the military, have guns. Sure, I will give you all the guns in the house. Of course. And if you tell me the cops are going to show up when that guy comes in to do horrible things to myself or my family, like, you can take all my weapons. But for me personally, the issue is that bad guys have guns. And then you've got good guys that can't defend themselves. Like, if we were in Florida, and and those two animals began shooting, 10 dads would be locked and loaded. And what do you say to
this
that?
is the thing. It's like, here, this is the problem with this. First off, obviously Australia banned guns to an extent back in, I believe it was 1966. They ran them over with steamrollers on the road, and they said, this was the contract with the Australian people, was the cops will protect you, we will be a safer society. And that was the contract. And yesterday you had 4 female cops hiding behind vehicles, hands in the air, not doing anything. And you've got Ahmed over there, who's like an old guy who runs out and tackles this dude and points the gun at him. I think he didn't pull the trigger because he didn't know how, to be honest, because he probably didn't grow up in gun culture in Australia. But the other thing is like me, I'm a law-abiding gun owner. Okay. I'm deputized also, like with law enforcement credentials. All right. There are still places in Manhattan. Like yesterday, we went to our luncheon and it was in a location where I'm not allowed to carry a firearm. So I had to leave my firearm in a safe, go to a large gathering, which, by the way, was advertised as a Newsmax holiday party. I mean, like, who would target a conservative network, right? I'm defenseless, but yet bad guys aren't going to care about stuff like that. But that was the contract in Australia. If you turn in your guns, we will protect you. And it turns out now there's actually 3 times as many guns in Australia as there were before the gun ban, believe it or not. This is something that the bad guys will always get guns. And we have this beautiful Second Amendment right here that gives people like me the ability to not only defend myself against bad guys, but also against a government that doesn't want to play by the rules that they're supposed to live by. And I know people are going to gasp at that, but this is the nature of this thing. More than often than not, crime is stopped by a good guy with a gun. And I can go down the list of a number of shootings
Will
recently.
you please actually go down the list? Yeah. Go down the list so people can see this.
There was recently a mall shooting, and I believe it was Ohio, where it was stopped by concealed carrier. You have 2 church shootings now that are stopped by concealed carrier. You have roughly 50,000. They can't exactly estimate this. 50,000 acts of violence are stopped every year by lawful gun owners. And that's reported to police. I mean, like, let's say a criminal comes up and points a knife at me. I pull a gun and it's diffused. Like, a lot of those don't even get reported. But the deterrence factor, the only people who will not be armed are law-abiding citizens like me who don't want to break the law. So it doesn't help. Like I'm the victim of a home invasion where I had to be downstairs and confront this with my firearm. And I hate to say it, but the presence of that firearm, I didn't fire a shot, but the presence of that firearm made those guys split, the ones that weren't already fighting me.
Wow.
So, like, I'm a testament to this. You have to be able to respond with equal force. Will bad guys get it? Sure, but that's. I will say Ben Franklin came out with like the best quote on this. To remove all liberty will not remove all tragedy. And that's the fact. You can't cage an animal.
What's also really upsetting about Brown is that it's a weapons-free zone.
Gun-free.
I have taught both my kids with they can't have tasers either, though. No tasers. They're not allowed to have tasers. They're not allowed to have. I think maybe pepper spray. I think maybe, but no tasers for sure. No guns, no knives.
Rhode Island, you can't do anything.
Both of my kids. Okay, but yet you have no security. You have no security. It's open to the public, and these kids can't defend themselves. They're sitting ducks. Literally, I've had both of my children taught to use guns. The minute they turn 18, I will be getting them concealed carries wherever they are. I am terrified about where my daughter goes to college. And like, she will have a Byrna, like one of those pepper spray things, like a taser, forget it. And at Brown, I always thought, like, I'm going to make sure this kid, she's in jujitsu. Like, I'm going to make sure my kids have a fighting chance when I'm not there. Not to mention, like, I'm not you. I couldn't even possibly. If somebody broke into my house, I have a freaking Beretta shotgun because I'll be so scared that, I'll probably I'll hit everything in the house but him. So I literally have a 12 gauge semi-automatic Beretta shotgun. So I know that if somebody breaks in the house, I'm going to be able to hit him. And we have a whole plan.
Yes.
The kids know, like, they stay in their room, they go out the window. Like, we have a whole plan that I had a safety specialist arrange for me. And here I am thinking, like, I've taken every precaution, and I just find out that these kids are sitting ducks. You have no security. It's open to the public, and they have no way of defending themselves.
Right. And
What is that, Carl?
under the promise of we will protect you. And like the government, every time the government says they will do something for people, they have let them down. I mean, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. And
Right.
I am just so frustrated and by the way, all the same people that are like gun control, gun control, gun control, they're protected by armed guards. Like our banks are protected by armed guards. Our Congress, our government officials, our judges, everybody's protected by armed guards except for our children that are protected by a little stupid sign out front of the school that says this is a gun-free zone. And 97% of recent shootings of more than 3 people since its inception of gun-free zones, which by the way was introduced by Joe Biden, have been in gun-free zones. 97% of shootings involving more than 3 victims in gun-free zones.
I could understand that if you said nobody needs a bump stock. I could see it. Am I wrong? I'm like, you don't need a bump stock to kill an elk.
Well, but
why do you say that? Because see, I could for sure go with you on. Tell me.
Our founding fathers didn't just get back from a hunting trip. They got back from liberating a nation. And the Second Amendment is designed, and this is why I oppose any and all restrictions on guns, because the Second Amendment was designed to allow the American citizen to rise up and defeat their government should they become tyrannical, like Great Britain did to the colonies. And that was the intention of it. And up until even the 70s, like there were no mass shootings at schools in the 70s. I think there was one in the 60s, actually, where somebody was shooting from a tower at a school. Turned out to be a completely deranged individual. However, there were no mass shootings at schools, and kids brought their guns to school because hunting was like a part of culture back then. It still is in a lot of places. There's significant history to show that that there is no, like, more guns don't equal more crime. And I'm going to give you a quick statistic before I go here, which is that if we are like 3 in the world for gun violence, behind like Honduras. By the way, communist gun-controlled Honduras. If you take away the top 5 or 6 cities in America, which by the way are all run by Democrats with very strict gun control laws, DC, Chicago, Detroit, New York City, places like that, if you get rid of them, we fall to the bottom 10% of gun crime globally, with half the guns in the world in our country.
God. Okay. Can I have 5 more minutes to push back? Because I feel like I'd be irresponsible if I didn't, because I know it's like, oh, you just, okay. We're going back to the founding fathers. You've heard, okay. So, well, when the founding fathers made these gun laws, nobody had assault rifles. So you couldn't possibly, I'm not saying I disagree with them right now. I'm just trying to put forward every element. You make a great point. But at the same time, I don't think they could envision how many bullets come out of a freaking semi-automatic rifle or an automatic rifle or whatever the heck you're rigging with a bump stock. They would never have done it if that was the case.
So the
Thoughts
problem
on that
was, so the other guy didn't have it either. And this is the same thing. You could do this. You could walk the line with anything from social media. Okay. The founding fathers would never have allowed people to talk shit on social media the way they do today, because it inspires hate speech or whatever the hell. And I love this debate because technology always outpaces legislation. But the intent of the Second Amendment was to grant people the ability to fight a government if they needed to. Our government has vastly more powerful and more effective weapons than the man population in America today, which I actually find disheartening and disturbing. And I would push back and say we should be able to get the same weapons as the U.S. government, including F-16s. If people are saying that right. The issue is, it doesn't matter how effective a gun is. Is it the same weapon that we could potentially be fighting for the need of liberty?
Right, I see. I understand. Okay. One more.
Mm-hmm.
Background checks. Like, I'm a bit confused because when I was in Florida, I had a background check. Now I'm in Wyoming, background check. Are these not thorough enough? I don't understand. I really honestly don't know. Like, oh, Trump removed some sort of block for people who have had previous mental illness, who were unable to get guns. Like, I would like people who are crazy or who have a record of crazy to not get guns.
So here's my take on background checks. I generally don't think I don't think firearms should be a controlled item. I think it should be like buying a car or anything like this because, yeah, hey, look, in New Orleans, a guy in a car killed more people than he did with a gun. So my issue with this is I will submit for the good of the argument and the nation that a background check is fine as long as it doesn't affect me or I have to pay for it. However, you apply the same standard to every single right. Clarence Thomas in Heller versus DC noted that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. He also reinforced that again in Bruin. Now, I want that applied to voting. Every time you go to vote, background check.
I love that. I can't argue with that. I totally agree with you. Is there anything on these topics that I missed, that I should have asked you and I didn't?
I would say one of the things is people are scared of things they don't know. And firearms is a big one of them. A lot of people are like, oh my God, this gun is scary. Well, like they are the first people to call somebody with a gun when they need it. And I would say to people who don't understand guns, don't legislate things. It's like you never shop when you're hungry. You know that. You're the master nutritionalist, okay? Never shop when you're hungry. Legislate when you're scared. And that's what you get with, like, Connecticut had the 1160 bill after the Sandy Hook shooting, which, by the way, that bill, not one provision in the hundreds of pages of that bill would have stopped the actual shooting itself. It wouldn't have, there was nothing in there that would have addressed the actual course of events that caused that shooting. This is what happens. Politicians legislate this. You have 68% of law enforcement officers in the state of Connecticut that refuse to comply with that new law and still don't, and it's never been enforced. Not one arrest has been made in conjunction with that law, to my knowledge. You have politicians who legislate so they can stand there and they're like, well, it's brave, and they pass it in the dead of the night at 2 a.m. and say, look at what we did. It's so good. And meanwhile, people like me, I'm like, well, now I have to either register guns, get rid of them, and I definitely can't buy them anymore. And it was totally legal yesterday. So that's the product of politicians trying to, you're never going to be able to legislate safety. You just can't, because, why don't we just make murder more illegal? I mean, that should solve it, right? It's the same as gun law.
You make far too good of sense. I really actually thought I felt very strongly about crazy people not getting guns, but I definitely agree with you about needing the background checks on IDs. So there's not a whole hell of a lot you could say that I disagree with, which is why I absolutely love talking to you. Carl, can you tell everybody where they can find you every single day? Tell them about your book, please.
Newsmax, 6 p.m. I got a couple books out there, and most people, again, didn't know I could read. So it's Profiles in Freedom is the last one. And actually in there, I talk about George Washington and Jefferson and their intent on the Second Amendment and, some of the principles that founded this nation, including assimilation and things like that. So 6 p.m. on Newsmax every night. And then, at Carl Higbie on all my social media, stuff like that, where I talk all kinds of shit.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'll be watching tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.